Welcome back, and there's plenty more action to come. We'll kick off now with the Rotax Max race for the O-Plate. John Stewart and Charlie Eastwood on the front row with Kyle Foley and Thomas Arm on row 2. Oliver Myers and Connor Jupp on row 3, and Oliver Hudson along with Darius Carberley in P8. Some exciting drivers coming through the field as well. Keep an eye on James Singleton right at the back. That could be interesting later on as they head for the chicane. A lot of drivers jostling for position, and we got a pile up into the chicane. Goodness me, that's about 8 drivers getting involved in that one. And down towards McRae's, the order will be very different as they come through at the end of the first lap. Still drivers getting caught up at the hairpin, more drivers going off the circuit. It's absolute pandemonium out there. Goodness me, the drivers in the Rotax Max race really getting a little bit heavy-handed. There's nothing you can do when there's that many karts going into that smaller space, and the drivers just getting by as best as they can.
It looks like John Stewart's been left out front. John won the British Open Championship here a couple of seasons ago. We see more contact, the 6 kart there, James Singleton involved. More contact coming out of the Stewart S's, but it's John Stewart on the 5 kart. He was running the O-Plate a couple of seasons ago. You can see he's got good 10 kart lengths there over the man in second place. That's Thomas Arm on the 9 kart. Kyle Fowley there on 63 in third. John Stewart was a British Open champion 2 seasons ago, hoping to recapture that title.
I saw someone in trouble there. It was the black machine, the 19, I think that was, of Jordan Irvine, caught up in the middle of that. He started towards the back and made up a lot of ground, but he was going very slowly on the run down to St John's, so I think he might be out of this one. Disaster for Jordan Irvine. Oh, getting into the rough stuff there. That's the 27. Oh dear, so not going well for Connor Jupp, who started right at the front. And Connor Jupp now having a wheel-to-wheel confrontation with the 23. That is Harry Webb. So a lot of drivers out of position. The qualifying has no bearing. The starting grid now, we may as well throw that out the window because the drivers now have made up their own race order. We're watching the battle for second place. This is between Arm, Fowley and Eastwood as they squabble over second place. There is the 63 of Kyle Fowley, just chasing down as much as he can Thomas Arm, with Charlie Eastwood very close in behind as well. The battle for second place as they desperately try and get after this man, John Stewart, who is making this race his own very early on the way down to McRae's. Just enough opposite lock through the corners, taking things nice and steady out front. There's even looking like a bit of a dry line developing now.
You can see how the drivers drive the outside of the corner. That's where the grip is. Anything on the racing line in these conditions will be very slippery indeed. The grip is on the outside of the corner generally. That's Thomas Arm. Thomas was a real top junior in his day. Spent a bit of a time dabbling with cars and has come back to karting. I think this is his 3rd season back, I think. And he's starting to get right back on the pace. A real top junior, Thomas Arm. And hoping to get back to the front of the field in senior karting. Warning flag out for somebody. Can't quite see who that is.
It seems to be a trend that's developing now amongst kart drivers. A lot of them are starting to move from karts to cars and then back again. I don't think that's necessarily just down to the money, but a lot of drivers are thinking, hang on, I was doing better in karts than I was in cars.
No, it's just down to the money, I can assure you.
Well, whichever the reason is, you've certainly got a lot of drivers coming back to the world. I mean, we talked about Cruttenden earlier on, and now, of course, we've got the return here of Thomas Arm, and he's certainly doing well at the present moment. They're not able to catch up with John Stewart right now, though.
We're talking about money there and people going out of karting into cars and coming back. It always amuses me when I read on forums people going to race cars. I'm going to go and race cars because it's cheaper than karting. I can assure you I've done both. That is absolute nonsense. You have a crash in a car, it's never going to be as cheap as karting.
Karting's certainly going to give you a real taste of what professional Grand Prix racing is like. A lot of karting drivers I've spoken to have said this is as close to Formula One as you can get without stepping into a proper racing car. And a lot of drivers like sticking around in it for that very reason. I think that's one of the reasons why Stefan de Resta, who we saw in the last race, enjoys it as much as he does. Yeah,
and Ayrton Senna himself said it's the purest form of racing. It's, you know, it's the thing he enjoyed most, including what he did in Formula One. He enjoyed karting more than Formula One.
So something to be said for the sport as a whole then, not just as a developing ground for young drivers. But here in Rotax Max, there's plenty of drivers who are hoping to stick around in the formula for quite a long time to come and take several championships with them. One man, though, at the front of this race and looking to take hold of the British Open Championship in 2013 Stewart, although now we've got Thomas Arm closing him down a little bit more. There is the fastest lap, 56.06, so clearly the track conditions getting a little bit better, because we wouldn't certainly be able to get a lap under a minute, even though these karts are faster than some of their counterparts we've seen earlier on. That certainly proves that a dry line is developing, and we are starting to get some under-minute laps. And who's that's gone off? I think that could be, well, I can't quite see the number. It's either the 28 of Carruthers or the 29 of Ian Bolland. So one of those two drivers has certainly come a cropper up at McRae's, and that's ended their afternoon's work more in sorrow than in anger. So disappointment for him, but unfortunately he's not going to take the championship out of it. Last lap, and Thomas Arm following Stewart all the way home, and he's got a bird's eye view of how to win a British Open Championship. He came close, but not quite close enough into Paddock Bend, and that is a masterclass drive, although he very nearly gave it away on the last corner. But he does take the championship. Very nicely done there from John Stewart. He beats Thomas Arm over the line, and he gets back the British Open Championship he won a couple of seasons ago.
John, British Open champion again. I think it's his second time, isn't it? Congratulations, and good season for you so far. Second at the televised final at the first round of the British Championship, and now British Open champion one more time. Congratulations. Just talk us through that race from your point of view. Looked fairly straightforward.
No, not at all. I had Tom about 4 kart lengths behind us the full race. I mean, I knew if I made one mistake, missed a curb or anything, he was going to be on us and do us. So, yeah, it was a very hard race. Yeah, like you said, we've had a good start of the season, made the switch to Gillard, and it's proven to be quite a promising switch so far. So, yeah, very happy.
Okay, next up, the highlights of the Junior TKM race. Matt Davies and the GP plate of Stephen Letts on the front row of the grid. Jake Campbell-Mills alongside Kyle Hornby on row 2. Daniel Babert and Alex Roberts there in row 3. Keep an eye out for some of the high movers. Aaron Mills could move up from 13th on the grid, and Alex Forward right the way down towards the back of the grid there in the number 6. Away we go then, wet conditions have returned, and it's a bit of a jostle into the first chicane, but everybody just about makes it through. Okay, I spoke too soon, there was a bit of a slip in the midfield, but everybody just about facing the right way out of the chicane as they head through McRae's. It's a little bit close, but again, it looks pretty clean this time round, and we have 2 breakaway leaders. I believe it is Davies and Letts that have moved off into the lead from the front of the grid. Davies has now lost the lead to the GP, and that's the number 3 that's gone round. That's Babert. Oh, and it's caused a pile-up. Oh dear, that has really gone wrong. Iredale's is now a traffic jam as they spin through the final hairpin. 7 karts caught up in that one. Dear, oh dear, that's all gone wrong. So, back to the front, and we've got this wheel-to-wheel dice as the GP plate comes through. Letts takes Davies for the lead of the race, and still wheel-to-wheel battling all the way through, but the GP plate hits the front, Alan. Brilliant driving.
Fantastic driving in the early stages. Stephen Letts had the lead from Matt Davies. Matt Davies then obviously out of the shot of the camera had the lead back, and then Letts down the inside at the right-hander at St John's, and has held on, coming through Sonny Bend and across the start-finish line one more time. So down to McRae's, bottom of the circuit. Looks like this race is pretty much decided. Could well be between these two, although in these conditions it might just depend on the tyres that people have. Because of the way part firming conditions work, you have to declare a set of tyres. Depending on whether you've used them earlier on in the weekend, you might have used them or chosen not to and have more tread on your tyres. We see Davies up the inside for the lead, he's held on as well. If you've got more tread on your tyres in these conditions compared to somebody that might have used wet tyres when you didn't have to earlier in the meeting, as Letts goes up the inside again, this is fantastic racing. If you've got the right tyres in these conditions, you can come through from the back of the field, and we can see here the 2 kart now is getting very close to the lead. That's Jake Campbell-Mills, second in the British Championships last season. So it's Campbell-Mills then through the 3rd. It's Kyle Hornby on the 83 kart in 4th place, and in behind Kyle is Shay Pearce on the 10 kart.
Very close indeed between these 4 or 5 karts as they battle for position. It looked like Hornby was going to try and make a move there on Campbell-Mills, and he still might on the run down to Iredale's as Jake Campbell-Mills holds on to the advantage for the moment. All these karts twitching under braking. And on the undercut, can he just about get the traction? No, Kyle Hornby just can't quite find enough grip out of Iredale's to make that move for 3rd position. And we've got a bit of a run wide. That's the move he wanted. Just sliced on the inside. Thanks very much indeed, mate. I'm off. So a little further into the race, and Stephen Letts pulling out a bit of a gap with a new fastest lap of 59.46. and that's definitely giving him a better chance of taking the O plate here today on a very tricky track surface that we've got here at Rowrah. In changing all the way through the race. Let's take a look further back and we can see Babert making his way back up through the field, making a move on the 52, I believe that is, of Jack Watson, so he gets through, and these two are battling again. In fact, Davies is through now. Davies is through, back on Letts. These two have swapped positions on the circuit, and again, more times than supermodels change outfits, and on the exit, the GP of Letts just goes too deep. Let's have a look at it again. So Davies is already there in the lead. Here comes Letts storming up the inside, and he just misses his braking point altogether. Locks in. What can he do? Nothing. Splash into the biggest puddle in Rowrah, and that's cost him any chances of going for the British Open in 2013. On to the last lap. Letts is still there in second place, but he's now a long way behind Matt Davies, who takes total control of the last couple of laps of this race. And he is British Open champion, and is he elated? Of course he is. Brilliant drive after a thrilling battle between these two. What a race. Alan caught up with him afterwards.
Matt, congratulations, British Open champion. You're running the O plate for the next year. How do you feel?
Really good, thank you. Very good.
Just talk us through the race from your point of view.
Stephen got the jump at me on the start, held it around the outside, sat behind him for, well, took a couple of dives down him the inside at the top. Didn't work, waited for another 5 minutes, so I took another dive. He dived back at me going down the hill, and he ended up going a little bit wide. I ended up just going past him and keeping a consistent pace for the rest of the race.
And your first national championship win, I think this is, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very pleased.
Congratulations, well done.
Thank you. Can I just like say a big thanks to my dad and all the team. Thank you.
Coming up after the break, it's Junior Rotax for drivers from 13 years of age. Don't go away, should be a cracker.